Children at a Mexico City school partially flattened by a powerful earthquake became a race against time on Wednesday as the death toll rose to at least 225. Firefighters, police officers and volunteers pulled at least 25 bodies, all but 4 of them children, from the Enrique Rebsamen school in the south of the capital. Crews wearing hard hats worked their way through pancaked concrete slabs as family members and teachers searched lists of children to see who was accounted for. Dr. Pedro Serrano, one of the volunteers, told the Associated Press that he managed to crawl into the crevices of the tottering pile of rubble and made it into a classroom, but found all of its occupants dead. "We saw some chairs and wooden tables," he said. "The next thing we saw was a leg, and then we started to move rubble and we found a girl and 2 adults, a woman and a man. 11 people were rescued alive from the school, but 30 others were still missing as of 2 a.m. ET, according to Mexico's education minister, Aurelio Nuno Mayer. A crowd of anxious parents outside the gates shared reports that 2 families had received WhatsApp messages from girls trapped inside, but those reports could not be confirmed. Rescuers brought in wooden beams to shore up the fallen concrete slabs so they wouldn't collapse further and crush whatever airspaces remained. The magnitude 7.1 temblor came on the 32nd anniversary of the deadliest earthquake in Mexico's modern history, which killed 5,000 people in 1985. Officials had been holding evacuation drills to mark the event just hours before Tuesday's quake. "A drill at 11 a.m. and an earthquake at 1 p.m., said Valerie Perez, 23, a student who ran from her apartment in Mexico City. "This is the most powerful thing I have ever seen in my life. An even more powerful earthquake struck last month, Mexico's strongest in 100 years. But the damage was less widespread and the death toll remained below 100. While considerably weaker, Tuesday's earthquake was deadlier and more destructive," the head of the National Civil Protection Agency said on Twitter early Wednesday. The nationwide death toll stood at 225, including 94 in Mexico City. The Enrique Rebsamen School was one of 44 buildings that collapsed across Mexico City alone, and around 40% of the capital and 60% of nearby Morelos State were without electricity, government officials said. On Mexico City's Reforma Avenue, thousands fled office buildings as they swayed under the stress of the tremor. In the neighborhood of Roma, rescue workers cheered after finding a woman alive under rubble. They then quieted down to listen for calls from other survivors. In the Roma Norte district, 30 people were pulled alive from the rubble of a collapsed employment agency, but 24 others were still missing. Families have been waiting outside all night for news on their loved ones. Laura Rodriguez, 62, said her street was quiet one day after Tuesday's chaos and upheaval. "Unbelievable," said Rodriguez about the scene in her neighborhood of Narvarte after several buildings collapsed following the earthquake. "At least one person was rescued while we were standing there," she added, describing how neighbors and military personnel were working together to try to rescue people amid fears that the collapsed structures could have dangerous gas leaks. Unfortunately, Rodriguez found out that a friend who lived by herself in a nearby building was among the victims who died. "The rescue squad found her around 3 a.m. she said. Play Facebook Twitter. Mexico City earthquake, death toll is skyrocketing into the hundreds.